Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into my Saturday edition on my personal YouTube channel. I hope you guys had a great week of work. If you work Monday through Friday, but if you are like a bartender or something, I understand that, been there, done that. So I hope you're enjoying your weekend of work if you are happen to be doing that as well. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get into my week 3 preview video. Those that have been here in the past know how this works. Just in case we got any first time listeners, I'm gonna share my quick takeaways from Thursday night's game, give out my prospect encyclopedia player of Thursday night football, dive into the 1 p.m. games, the 4 p.m. games, the Sunday night matchup, and the Monday night matchup, and get you guys out of here and try to get this done as fast as possible by that hour time frame that I've been doing these videos on. Let's go ahead and dive into it. The Panthers took care of business on Thursday night by beating the Texans 24-9. That was a really lot closer of a matchup than I anticipated. That I think the score doesn't show how close that game was for the majority of the game until the Panthers finally broke away in the second half of that game. I thought Sam Darnold was very up and down. Once CMC was out with his injury, he kind of reverted back to the Sam Darnold of the old. He had a couple fumbles that could have really changed the game around if his linemen didn't recover those. But going forward, I think the Panthers could still build upon this. They're sitting at a 3-0 record, but it's going to be a lot harder, right? Because you're seeing those injuries reported right below. Christian McCaffrey has suffered a strained hamstring. Now, there is no plan to place him on IR. So a reminder, if a player gets placed on IR, they can return after 3 weeks. So if there's no plan to place him on IR, that means they feel good about his chances returning before the 3-week period would end. I believe I saw it this morning. Coach Matt Rule was on Sirius XM last night, and it sounded like he thinks Christian McCaffrey's only going to be out for 2 weeks. So if you're a Christian McCaffrey fantasy owner, you got to be at least relieved that it's only going to maybe be like a 2 to 3 week absence, and he'll be able to come back by the halfway point of the year at least and get you to the playoffs and help you win a championship. But either way, that sucks. Christian McCaffrey is absolutely one of my personal favorite players in the league. I've loved him since he came in, so I just want to see a fully healthy CMC. I hope this is not his case for his career. And then their first round pick, J.C. Horn, he broke 3 bones in his foot. It could be season ending. It sounds like he's going to be out for a majority of the season, but I don't think they're going to say his season's necessarily over, because if the Panthers can continue to win games and be in the chance to get into the playoffs, I think there's hope that he could at least return for the playoffs if the Panthers were going to be in that position by the end of the season. But yeah, going forward, the Panthers are sitting at a 3-0 record. This is something they can continue to build upon. And then the Texans are sitting at 1-2. It's just like, hey, they're feisty. I'll give them that. The Texans, I thought they were going to be a flat-out awful team, but they are at least competitive. Dave Coley is getting the best out of his roster, despite some questionable decisions he makes during the games. But either way, they're more of a competitive team than I thought. I'm going to go ahead and put a bow on the Thursday night game. As always, my weekly prospect encyclopedia player of Thursday night football. I'm going to go ahead and give it to the kid that helped replace CMC after the injury, Chuba Hubbard. I thought he showed some decent things in the game. Now he's going to more likely be their lead back going forward. Chuba Hubbard had 11 rushes for 52 yards, and he had 3 receptions for 27 yards in that matchup. He wasn't like overly impressive, but I thought he picked up some good, he had a couple of good 10 to 14 yard gains throughout the day. He was involved in the passing attack that night, and now they really need him to step up in his year 1 and be a major contributor until they can get Christian McCaffrey back. And if he can prove himself, maybe he can work in and help take the load off of Christian McCaffrey whenever he works his way back from that hamstring strain. But yeah, let's just go ahead and dive into the 1 p.m. matchups. I'm going to go ahead and get going with this. We got the Los Angeles Chargers traveling out to Kansas City. Let's take a look at their injury report. For the Chargers, Chris Harris Jr. has been ruled out. Justin Jones, Chris Harris Jr. has been ruled out with a foot. Justin Jones is doubtful with a calf. And then Joey Bosa is questionable. I put questionable twice, so I don't even have his injury in there. Sorry about that, guys. That was a mistake on my part writing this up. But Joey Bosa is questionable for the matchup. And then the Chiefs, Frank Clark is doubtful with a hamstring. Chris Jones is questionable with a wrist, and Charvarius Ward is questionable with a quad. We got both one-on-one teams that obviously they don't want to fall 1-2, especially with how tough the AFC West is looking right now. Starting, I guess, with the Chiefs offense, just because it's really easy to break down. I mean, they're obviously still one of the best offenses of the league. Got Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. I think I said it on my start-sit video for fantasy football this week. I think you're going to see a good game out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Everybody's kind of down on him right now. He hasn't done much for the team this year. He had that big fumble that cost them the game last week. But I think he set the bounce back this week because the Chargers defense has been giving up a lot of yards on the ground. So I think the Chiefs, they're going to be looking to try, I think they're going to eventually try to get a proper balance between their rushing attack and their passing attack with Patrick Mahomes. Now, I'm not saying they need to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands for any reason, but I think if they can get more of a consistent rushing attack, that's going to allow things to open up for Patrick Mahomes and make this offense even more explosive as the season progresses. And that Chargers defense, they're still they can't really stop the run, but they've been really decent against the pass. So it'll be interesting to see how they can contain the passing attack. Now, Chris Harris Jr. is out, so that's going to make it a lot difficult to figure out who they want to stick on, like a Tyreek Hill, and who's going to be covering Travis Kelce. They can maybe move up Derwin James into the slot and put him on Kelce, but it's going to be a difficult day regardless. I think the Chiefs move the ball, and they're in scoring position more times than not. And switching sides of the ball, that Chargers offense, they were looking good. That Chargers-Cowboys game was really good, really weird, because they were moving the ball. It's just that they should have had 2 more touchdowns last week, but both got called back on penalties. Justin Herbert, his numbers might not show it, but the kid is still impressing with some of the throws that he is making in those games, and he's going against a Chiefs defense that's basically been Swiss cheese as far as defending the run. They were giving up over 200 rushing yards per game to start the season, so that bodes well for Austin Eckler if they can get things going on the rushing game. That's something they probably want to do so they can keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline, and then Justin Herbert can take what's given to him, make sure he gets the ball to Mike Williams, make sure he gets the ball to Keenan Allen, and keep on moving the ball down the field, play a little bit of clock control. But it's very important that you don't have those penalties come up, because you need as many touchdowns as you can get against this Chiefs team. Now, as far as my prediction, can I see the Chargers maybe pulling off the upset? Definitely, but it's in Kansas City. Kansas City's coming off that brutal loss. I don't see Kansas City losing back-to-back games underneath Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. It's going to be a little bit closer because the Chargers typically do play them well, especially in Kansas City. So I'm going to say the Chiefs win like a 27-21 type of win tomorrow. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep it moving. We got Arizona traveling out to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars. Taking a look at the injury report for the Jaguars really quick. These 3 players are questionable. C.J. Henderson with the groin, Roy Robertson-Harris with the ankle, and Trey Herndon with a knee. And then on the Cardinals front, Joshua Miles is out with an ankle. Brian Winter is out. It's just non-injury related. It's a personal reason. And then these following 5 players are questionable. Kelvin Beachum with the ribs, DeAndre Hopkins with ribs, Marco Wilson with an ankle, Devin Kennard with a hamstring, and Byron Murphy with an ankle. So starting with the Jaguars offense, they need to figure out a rushing attack. They are putting too much on Trevor Lawrence's plate right now. I don't know why they're trying to go so pass happy. Yes, Trevor Lawrence is, he's still got the makings of a great quarterback, but they don't have the offensive line to protect him like that, where you're going to let him air it out. They need to get, they need to figure out something with James Robinson and Carlos Hyde, and try to get something going and get a proper balance and take the load off that young kid's plate before you break him. And they're going against a Cardinals defense that gave up a lot of yards through the pass, though, last week against the Vikings. As you can see, Byron Murphy, their best cornerback, is questionable. Marco Wilson, who's showed some decent things in his first 2 games as a pro, is questionable. So that secondary is banged up. So that means it's on, DJ Chark, Marvin Jones Jr. I think Laviska Schultz good to go. So it's going to be on those three to dominate their matchups. And if they can, this Jaguars team, then maybe this is where the game they can get the things going on, their offensive side of the ball. But if it doesn't, it's going to be a long game because if you switch sides of the ball, Kyler Murray's on fire right now. And that Jaguars defense is a dumpster fire right now. It's quite opposite of fires, but the Jaguars defense is completely struggling to stop anything right now. That you can move the ball easily on them. I think Kyler Murray's going to torch them all day. Even if DeAndre Hopkins gets ruled out tomorrow morning. I mean, Christian Kirk's playing good. Rondale Moore broke out last week. They still got A.J. Green. Max Williams showed up last week. So he's still got some guys he can spread the ball to. They can still get Chase Edmonds involved. James Conner. A lot of weapons at his disposal. So I think this Cardinals deep offense is going to put up a lot of points. And that was my previous point. If the Jaguars can't figure out things in the offense, it's going to be a long day once again for Jacksonville. And I kind of lean towards that's what's going to happen. I got the Cardinals winning like a 31-17 type of game for Arizona. And then moving on to the next game, we got the Chicago Bears traveling out to Cleveland to face the Browns. Now, a little note, if you base this just on injury reports only, there's a team, the Ravens, I'm going to talk about here later in the episode, but based on only injury reports, the Bears have the most players on the injury report for week 3. Starting with the Bears, Andy Dalton's out with a knee. Tashawn Gibson is doubtful with a hamstring. These following players are questionable. Jeremiah Atachi with a hamstring, Akeem Hicks with the illness and knee, Eddie Goldman with a knee, Darnell Mooney with a groin, Marquise Goodwin with the ankle, Eddie Jackson with a toe, and Bilal Nichols with a back. And then you switch sides to the Browns side of the ball. Chris Hubbard is out with a triceps. Sion Takitaki is out with a hamstring. J.C. Treader is questionable with a knee, and Jedrick Wills is questionable with an ankle. So this is my boy Justin Fields' first start this year. I'm very excited to see what he can do after getting a full week of practice with the ones. I know he was thrown into action last week. He did help lead the Bears to that victory. Now he did make that kind of dumb decision when he threw the pick 6, but that is going to happen with rookie quarterbacks, especially when they were thrown into the game when they probably weren't expecting to play. That can definitely show up. Now he's got a full week of practice, but he is going against a pretty good, I wouldn't say pretty good. The Browns defense still needs to make some improvements in certain areas, but a pretty solid Browns defense. So it's going to be a nice little test for Justin to see what he can do. I'm very curious to see what Matt Nagy has drawn up for him. I think this is a way that it's going to improve and open up rushing lanes for David Montgomery because of Justin Fields' mobility. So I think David Montgomery is going to have a decent day, and I'm just curious who's going to end up being like this. How this passing attack is going to look like. Yeah, like Allen Robinson, he's going to probably dominate the targets. Now Darnell Mooney and Marquise Goodwin, they're both questionable. We'll have to see if they're going to be able to good to go tomorrow morning. So does that mean Cole Kmet maybe gets a heavily influenced because rookie quarterbacks do tend to look their tight end ways? But how I view this offense, though, their offensive line is still banged up, though. I think there's going to be an up and down day for Justin. I think he's going to look great on some drives. He's going to drop some dimes. He's going to scamper for first downs and put his team in scoring position and get a couple touchdowns. But then I think he's going to have his rookie moments. He's maybe going to try to test a throw that he doesn't know that he's not sure if he can make or not. That's going to either result in them punting or maybe even a turnover. I think it's just going to be an up and down day, but I think Justin at the end of the day is going to show some promising things that he can build upon in this matchup. Then you flip the other side of the ball. The Browns are going against a really strong defensive front in the Bears. Now we'll have to see if Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman are out. Boy, that means Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to run all over this Bears defense. So that's where I'm watching that injury report tomorrow morning. If those guys can play, maybe they have to lean on the pass because this is going to be interesting too because Odell Beckham is going to make his debut. So that Bears defense will have. I still have some questions about the secondary. So I think if the Browns can get things going with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on the ground, that's going to open up play action shots to Odell Beckham. Man, as I'm talking about this, I think Odell blows up tomorrow. I want to see it. I know the rest of the NFL fans want to see it. I'm ready for the old Odell to come back. I'm calling it right now. I said it last week with Rondale Moore. My intuition tomorrow right now is hitting me. Odell Beckham blows up. The Browns win easily. They win like a 28-17 type of win. tomorrow. And I'm going to go ahead and keep it moving. We got the Washington football team traveling up to Buffalo to face the Bills. Short injury report on both sides. On the football team, Matt Ioannidis is questionable with his knee injury. And then on the Bills side, Dane Jackson is questionable with a knee. And then Levi Wallace is questionable with his knee injury. So starting with the football team, Taylor Heinicke he looked solid, I would say, in that Thursday night win over the Giants. We'll have to see if he can continue against this Bills defense, who is playing really at a high level right now. I think this is a really good matchup. Now, the Washington football team's offensive line has been playing solid, but they're going to be very tested against this Bills defensive front, which is getting after quarterbacks. So we're going to have to see if Taylor Heinicke can use that mobility of his and extend plays. Otherwise, Jerry Hughes, Gregory Rousseau, Ed Oliver could be bottling him up throughout the day. And then we'll have to see too, though. Levi Wallace is questionable. Dane Jackson's questionable. Obviously they got Tre'Davious White to deal with Terry McLaurin, but maybe that opens up things for Diami Brown to have his breakout rookie performance. We'll have to see if they can lean on Antonio Gibson, maybe try to get the ground game going. That's where I think that's what they need to do in this matchup. I don't think they need to put the load on Taylor Heinicke's shoulder. I think they need to get Antonio Gibson involved early and as often as possible. And if they can, I think that's where they're going to be able to move the ball most of the day. But I can see the Bills containing them and keeping them out of the end zone at times. Switching sides of the ball, this Bills offense has been very sporadic this season. They are not looking like last year, but I think it's just because, I don't know, it feels like they're kind of working through some things right now, trying to figure out Emmanuel Sanders and people's roles within that offense for this year. But we saw them finally kind of get things going with Devin Singletary last week. We saw Zach Moss being involved on his couple touchdowns inside the red zone. So I think if they could start getting that rushing attack, kind of like I just talked about the Chiefs, if they can get Singletary and Zach Moss going, that's going to open up the play action where Josh Allen is going to be able to take his deep shots to Emmanuel Sanders, to Stephon Diggs. He's going to be able to hit Cole Beasley in the crosser routes, intermediate range. And I think this is going to be a nice, decent game. Now, here's the thing, though, is the Bills' offensive line. Are they going to be able to contain the Washington defensive front? Now, surprisingly, the Giants' offensive line did. So that Washington defensive front is going to be looking to have a bounce-back type of performance. But I think the Bills, with Josh Allen's mobility, he's going to be able to stretch out plays, and he's going to put his team in scoring position more times than not. I feel like this is going to be a really great matchup. I can see the football team pulling off the upset in Buffalo, but I always pick the better quarterback, and I think Josh Allen is tremendously better than Taylor Heinicke. So I think the Bills find a way to pull away in the fourth quarter, and they win a 31-21 type of win tomorrow. Now, heading into the next matchup, we got the Indianapolis Colts traveling down to Tennessee to face the Titans. Starting with the injury report, Braden Smith is out with a foot and thumb. Jordan Glasgow is out with a concussion. And then Carson Wentz is actually questionable with his ankle. So it looked like he was going to be out, but now he is on track to play, barring a setback tomorrow. And then with the Titans, Caleb Farley is out with a shoulder. Anthony Ferguson is out with a knee. Derek Robertson is out with a knee, and then Bud Dupree is questionable with his knee injury. This is a classic AFC divisional rival matchup between the Colts and the Titans. If you asked me at the beginning of this week when it looked like Carson Wentz might not play this week, I would have told you the Titans are going to blow out the Colts. But as the week went on, that Colts injury report got a lot smaller. Xavier Rhodes is going to be playing, and then Carson Wentz is going to be out there. I thought the Colts offense showed some good things last week against that Los Angeles Rams defense. So I think they're going to be able to carry that into this matchup against the Titans. The Titans are... Now, I do know more about this matchup, obviously, because I write for Colts Wire, and I'm a Colts fan, but the Titans are giving up 406 yards per game on defense. They give up 300 passing yards per game and 106 on the ground. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to have a strong game, and I think that's going to open up things for Carson, where he's going to take what's given to him and he's going to have a solid day. And I think this Colts offense is going to have their best performance of the season thus far. And then you switch sides of the ball, though. The Colts defense has really struggled. Even with Rhodes back, you got the worries of Ryan Tannehill picking them apart with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. Obviously, Derrick Henry's going to do what what Derrick Henry does on the ground. I think this is going to be a back and forth battle. I think both offenses are going to be able to move the ball, and this is going to come down to who can win the turnover battle between both teams. Whoever can force more turnovers, I think is going to win this game. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think it's going to come down to who has the ball last. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pick the Colts. I did it in my prediction video. I think they find a way to win. Frank Reich is 4-2 against the Titans. So he has a strong record over Tennessee and Mike Vrabel. I think he's going to continue that tomorrow, and they salvage their season and go 1-2 and put themselves on top of the AFC South. Colts win 27-24 tomorrow. Go ahead and keep this moving. We got the Saints traveling up to New England to face the Patriots. Another short injury report. The Saints, Eric McCoy is out with his calf injury. On the Patriots side, Trent Brown is questionable with a calf. Adrian Phillips is questionable with a non-injury related. And then Josh Uche is questionable with a back. Man, this matchup, I'm not sure really how I feel about it, right? So like the Patriots, you know, they barely lost to the Dolphins in week 1. Obviously, they took care of business against the Jets. But this Patriots team is still kind of hard to figure out. It seemed like they finally got things going on the ground with Damian Harris. So it feels like they're going to be more of a rushing team. They're just going to have Mac Jones play smart quarterback play. They really don't have a passing attack. I think that would scare teams at the moment. So if you got a strong secondary, I think you can bottle up their run game and force Mac to beat you. And I think that's the defense attack that the Saints should do on Sunday, especially now that they got Marshawn Lattimore and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back to play against that defense. And then, but yeah, I think either way though, because I think the Patriots are going to be able to move the ball. I think they're going to struggle though when they get into the red zone. And then flipping side of the ball, man, who's this Saints offense? The first week they blow up against the Packers, and then last week they look awful against the Panthers. So what offense are we going to see? I mean, are they going to be able to get things going against this strong Patriots defense? It's in Foxborough, so I think Bill Belichick's going to be able to manipulate his defensive scheme and force Jameis Winston to make his typical poor decisions, and that's going to lead towards turnovers. But I also think there's going to be at times where this Saints offense is moving the ball down the field and getting themselves into scoring position. Man, I think it's going to be a lot closer than I originally was anticipating before I talked about this matchup, just because the Saints they're a lot healthier than they were last week. They're not going to have as many people out, and then they're getting their coaching staff back too. So I think we're going to see more of a resemblance of that. I think it's going to be more of a resemblance of that week 1 team that we saw. So I'm going to think it's going to be close, but I think the Patriots find a way to squeeze out the win in Foxborough. They win like a 21-17 type of win tomorrow. And then I'm just going to go ahead and keep it moving to the next matchup. We got the Atlanta Falcons heading up to New York to face the Giants. Taking a look at the injury report on the Falcons side, Russell Gage is out with an ankle injury. AJ Terrell is out with a concussion, and Frank Darby is out with a calf injury. And then you flip sides of the ball to the Giants injury report. Cam Brown is out with a hamstring, and then Evan Ingram is questionable with a calf injury, and then Kenny Golladay is questionable with a hip injury. Starting with Atlanta's offense, has been more than disappointing. I thought they were going to be a lot better this year. They're not really getting much out of Mike Davis right now. That offensive line is failing to protect Matt Ryan, and they are not really getting much out of their passing attack either. And then they're going against a Giants defense that you can move the ball up against, but that defensive front, I think, is going to be able to not only contain any type of attempt to be a rushing attack from the Falcons, but I think they're going to be able to get after Matt Ryan and create sacks and potential turnovers through pressure. And I think that Giants secondary, which has struggled in the first couple weeks, I think this is a bounce back type of performance with them, and I think they're going to be able to get their hands on some balls throughout the day. But I do think there will, I don't know, I was about to say I do think there are going to be times that the Falcons can put some touchdown drives together. There might be, but I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a strong performance out of this Giants defense tomorrow. And on the other side, Daniel Jones looked really good. I'm going to go ahead and say it. And against Washington football team, he put his team in position where they should have won that game if some of the other players on the offense would have executed on some of their plays. And I think that they're going to be able to get some things together against this Atlanta Falcons defense, which is really struggling to do anything right now. I think this is where you're going to see Saquon Barkley have his breakout performance post injury this season. I think Saquon Barkley is going to ball out. I think Daniel Jones is going to pepper targets to Sterling Shepard. Darius Slayton, I think, will bounce back this week. Maybe Evan Ingram if he plays. I think it's going to be a nice day for Daniel Jones. I think they're going to have a really good, solid day from the offense and defensive side of the ball. I just think the Giants are a better team right now than the Falcons. I think they're going to handle business. I don't think it's going to even be that close. I mean, I think it's going to be like a 24-14 type of win for New York tomorrow. And then I'm just going to go ahead and keep this thing moving, fellas and women, if you guys are watching. My analytics say it's mostly men that watch my channel, but maybe one day I can get my female listeners up. I'm going to go ahead and keep this moving into the next matchup. We got the Cincinnati Bengals traveling out to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. These following three players are doubtful for Cincinnati. T. Higgins is our shoulder, with a shoulder. Xavier Su'a-Filo with a knee. Trey Waynes with a hamstring. Flipping sides of the ball, Deontay Johnson is out for the Steelers with a knee. Alex Highsmith with the groin is out. Carlos Davis with a knee is out, and then T.J. Watt is questionable with the groin. But I think if I remember right, he's. It sounds like T.J. is going to be able to go. As far as this matchup, man, I feel like this is a lot closer than what maybe people feel like because the Bears beat the Bengals last week, but I think the Steelers are not really showing much promise on their offense right now. That offensive line, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger is trusting them too much, and then Ben Roethlisberger is dealing with some sort of pec injury, even though he wasn't on the final injury report. And I think I guess let's just start with the Steelers offense. Yeah, the Steelers offense needs to figure themselves out and figure out what their identity is. I mean, they drafted Najee Harris in the first round. They can't get him going. I thought he was going to have a good week last week. And then, that passing attack with all their weapons is just not consistent enough. Deontay Johnson's out. I mean, where's Juju this year? Maybe I just haven't watched it closely enough when I rewatch these games, but I haven't really seen much out of Juju. Chase Claypool is showing some good things, so maybe they can get him going, and maybe they get James Washington going this week with Deontay out of the matchup. But I think, in my opinion, when we usually see Ben Roethlisberger being Big Ben, he's got a tight end, right? Throughout his history with Heath Miller, for just pointing back to him, even though it's a long time ago, it usually seems like he always has had a tight end, right? Jesse James in the past. Where's Eric Ebron or Pat Freiermuth? Try to get those guys involved this week. And I think if they can get the tight ends involved, I think that's where they're going to be able to get the wide receivers that have better games. And then I think that can maybe help out somewhat in their passing attack as well. Let's see what they can figure out this identity against this Bengals defense. Now, this Bengals defense is not that bad, guys. I think they have a defensive front that can harass Big Ben throughout the day. I think they got good good coverage linebackers, and like Logan Wilson, who got his pick 6 last week. So I think the Bengals defense is going to be able to somewhat contain the Steelers offense throughout the most of the game. So I think it's going to be up and down day for the Steelers, but I do think they're going to put together about 2 to 3 touchdown drives throughout the afternoon. Flipping sides of the ball, Joe Burrow probably had his worst game in his career, throwing those back, 3 picks in a row. I think he's going to be able to bounce back this game. I don't think he's going to make the mistakes, but I think he's still going to have a tough outing against this really good Steelers defense. That defensive interior of the offensive line for the Bengals is struggling right now. So I think a guy like Cam Hayward is going to harass the middle of the middle of the offensive line, and that's going to open up things for TJ to come off the edge, as well as Melvin Ingram, and that's going to make Joe run for his life. Come on, guys, protect him. I don't have an issue with Riley Leaf and Jonah Williams, but they had to figure out that interior of the offensive line to give him time. T. Higgins is going to be out, so it's going to be the Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd show. They're going to really need Joe Mixon to show up in this matchup if they want to win. I kind of view them as too like the Steelers offense. I think they're going to have a really bad time tomorrow, but I think they can put together that 2 to 3 touchdown drive. I think this is going to be a really low-scoring AFC North defensive battle. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I really think this is going to come down to who has the ball last. Maybe it comes down to who wins the turnover battle. It's in Pittsburgh. I really do. I really want to pick the Bengals. But I'm gonna go with the Steelers. I think they find a way to edge out the Bengals in the fourth quarter. It's like a 17-4. I said 2-3 touch. You know what? I'll just do a 20-17 win for the Steelers tomorrow. And then I'm gonna go into the next matchup. We got Baltimore traveling out to Detroit to face the Lions. Both teams are got the potential to miss a lot of players tomorrow. Now, the reason why I mentioned that earlier when I talked about the Chicago Bears having the most players on the final injury report, that is true. But if you include players on the COVID reserve list, the Ravens have the most players between the COVID reserve list and the final injury report at 14 players. It came out last night that four of their guys on their defensive front, which all get a good amount of snaps throughout the game, including a couple starters, aren't going to be playing tomorrow. Brandon Williams, Justin Madubuike, Justin Houston, and Jalen Ferguson were all placed on the reserve COVID-19 list, so they are officially ruled out. And then Ronnie Stanley is out with an ankle injury, and then Derek Wolfe is out with a hip and back. These following players are questionable: Tavon Young with a knee, Marquise Brown with an ankle, Jimmy Smith with an ankle, Lamar Jackson with an illness, and Chris Board with, it just said other. I haven't seen that before. I've seen people, placed on the injury report with non-injury related, but I've never seen it listed as other. So I don't know what that means. And then Pernell McPhee is questionable with a shoulder. And then, I looked at all that, right? And I was like, oh man, with all those guys out on the defensive front for the Ravens this week, man, like I could see the Lions running down their throats and maybe pulling off an upset. But then you take a look at the Lions injury report. They're pretty banged up too. Jamie Collins is out this week. They're looking to trade Jamie Collins, so they're not even allowing him to practice or play for them right now. I would not be surprised if by the time this video you're watching it, if Jamie Collins is traded to a new team. It's probably going to happen in the next couple of days. And then these following players are questionable: Michael Brockers with a shoulder, Trey Flowers with a shoulder and knee, Julian Akawara with a neck, Romeo Akawara with a shoulder. So you got four players on their defensive front that are at least questionable, and if they play, they're going to be banged up. And then Khalif Raymond is questionable with a thigh, DeAndre Swift is questionable with a groin, and Kevin Strong is questionable with a concussion and thigh. So where do we start here? Let's start with the Ravens offense. I think they found Lamar Jackson is such a special talent. I don't know why people give him such a hard time. I give him a hard time because you want to see him if he can put the team on his back and win the fourth quarter, right? Well, he literally just did that last week. So that was a question I had for him last week, and he did that against the Chiefs, leading his team back from when they were down double digits and beat a great team in Kansas City. I think that solidifies him that he's, maybe he's not going to be a Patrick Mahomes, but the guy he's literally dealing with, his backfield is out with injuries. They're depending on old heads. And Marquise Brown is finally turning into Hollywood Brown. And if they can continue this week against this Lions secondary, which is very poor right now, I think we're going to see a nice passing day out of Lamar. I really do think that can happen. I think he's going to get his on the ground, but I think we might see Lamar have his highest career of passing yards against this Lions defense. I think Marquise Brown's going to have a good day. I think Sammy Watkins is going to have a good day. And Mark Andrews is going to have a good day. I think we're going to see a nice little passing attack out of this Ravens offense tomorrow. And then I think that's going to allow things to even open up for Tyson Williams and the old heads in that backfield. And I think their offense is going to have a strong day. I think they're going to carry that confidence from that Chiefs win into this week against this poor Lions defense. And then you switch sides of the ball, the Lions offense, you talk about a hit and miss team, right? They were looking so good against the Packers, and then Jared Goff does Jared Goff things and turns the ball over and completely throws, not want to say he throws the game away, but he completely loses any type of momentum that offense had going. And he's done that on back-to-back weeks at this point. And, like I was saying, though, if there's a recipe to success, a recipe for Detroit to get their first win, it's ground and pound with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. All those guys are out on that Ravens defensive front. There is no reason why this Lions offensive line should not dominate this matchup. I mean, I know they still got Calais Campbell up front and some other guys on that Ravens defense, but if there's a way they can win, dominate the ground. Jared Goff, don't turn the ball over. Be as efficient as possible. Get the ball to TJ Hawkinson, Quintez Cephas, and just don't make dumb decisions. But you have to put up touchdowns. Like, I view that, like, especially with how bad the Lions' defense is, you're going to have to play clock control, keep Lamar on the sidelines, keep him cold, and not let him get warmed up, and convert touchdowns, touchdowns, touchdowns. And then your defense just has to take risks to try to force turnovers. Listen, until I see that happening from the Lions, I can't pick them to win. I thought I was going to do it because of how many people the Ravens might be missing tomorrow. And then maybe they have I don't know, like a hangover from that big win, but I don't see it happening. I think the Ravens have a great day. Like I said, on the passing attack, I think they end up winning like, let's go like a 28-17 type of win for Baltimore. Now I'm going to go ahead and move into the 4 p.m. games. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Jets against the Denver Broncos. This probably will be a very short one because the Jets are just... I don't know how Jets fans are Jets fans. I'm sorry, guys. Starting with the Jets injury report, Tevin Coleman's out with an illness. Jamison Crowder is doubtful with a groin. John Franklin Myers is questionable with a calf injury. And then you flip sides to Denver's injury report. Mike Purcell is questionable with a knee. And then Graham Glasgow is questionable with an illness. Yeah, man, it's going to be short, man. Like, the Jets offense just is not showing anything. They're failing to protect Zach Wilson, and they're going against a defensive front that's, I mean, Bradley Chubb's out, right, unfortunately, now for the foreseeable future because he had to have surgery on his ankle. But they got Von Miller, who's playing at a really great level right now despite his age. They still got a strong interior defense at the front, so I think they're going to be able to contain whatever type of rushing attack the Jets want to throw at them this week. And I think Von Miller is going to get his hands on Zach Wilson throughout the day. And then they're also going against a very strong secondary. Patrick Surtain had his best game as a rookie last week. They still got Justin Simmons back there. So Zach Wilson better be smart with the ball. Otherwise, he's going to end up with 4 interceptions once again like he did last week against the Panthers defense. So I think this Denver Broncos defense is going to harass this Jets offense throughout the day. And I just don't see the Jets getting anything going on offense in Denver tomorrow. And then on the opposite side of the ball, you know, the Denver Broncos offense has been looking pretty solid with Teddy Bridgewater. He's taken shots. I think Cortland Sutton's going to have a big game against that poor Jets secondary. I think Noah Fant can have a strong day against that defense as well. And I think we're going to see a nice little healthy dose of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I think they're just going to play clock control, move the ball, get touchdowns, get off the field, let their defense go on there, force 3 and outs, maybe turnovers, get on the field, score touchdowns. Like, I think the Denver Broncos are going to handle their business against New York, improve to a 3-0 record. They're going to win like a... Where am I going with, guys? Let's go with a 31-14 type of win for the Broncos tomorrow. And then we're going to keep this thing moving. We got the Miami Dolphins traveling out to Las Vegas to face the Raiders. Hold on one second. Titan, stop that, man. Sorry, my Titan. I was not going to let you hear my dog start chewing on his ass like that. It's a disgusting sound that I had to deal with, and I don't want my listeners dealing with that as well. So I do apologize about that. Let's just go ahead and get it back into it. We got the Miami Dolphins traveling out to Las Vegas to face the Raiders. Sorry, that kind of threw me off there. We got the Dolphins. Their injury report's short, but it's huge. Tua Tagovailoa is out with his rib. I don't know why I listed hip. It's ribs. He had fractured ribs, and so he's out for the foreseeable future. But he hasn't been placed on IR. So that's a good sign. They may think he can return either after this week or the following week. And then the Raiders report, Richie Incognito is out with a calf injury. Dallin Levitt is out with a concussion. Roderick Teamer is out with an ankle injury. And then Josh Jacobs is doubtful with his ankle injury. So it looks like Kenyon Drake might be able to get his revenge game factor. I hope so. I literally placed him into a starting lineup in one of my fantasy leagues this week. But yeah, so since I brought that up, let's just start there. That Raiders offense is humming right now. Derek Carr is actually taking deep shots for once. How many people have been following me? That's all I've been asking for him to do. But can he continue to do it? If he could continue to do that, and if John Gruden could continue to get Henry Ruggs 7+ targets, man, this offense can be very explosive this year. We saw it last week. I think if they can keep on getting Henry Ruggs involved, obviously keep on featuring Darren Waller, get Bryan Edwards a little bit more involved as well, and I think you got a nice little potent passing attack going on right now with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Josh Jacobs is out, but I think they can lean on Kenyon Drake. The Miami defense, they do got their stud corners, so you don't want to force the issue with the pass, because those guys can take especially Xavier Howard, he can take one poor throw for an interception and take it to the house. So you don't want to test it too often, but you want to make sure you keep them in check on that on the passing attack. You want to take those shots, but don't. This is probably a secondary you don't want to force the issue, right? Just take what's given to you, and then try to get things going between Kenyon Drake and their other backup running backs. Peyton Barber, that's the name I was searching for right there. And just try to have a nice little decent balance of the attack tomorrow. And I think Kenyon Drake is going to have a good game. Maybe I'm just saying that because he's on my fantasy team, but I think he can get his revenge against his former team in the Dolphins. And I think the Raiders offense is going to move the ball quite often. And then you flip sides of the ball, Tua's out, right? They got Jacoby Brissett. But listen, I watched a full season Jacoby Brissett as a starter. He's a very solid backup. He's a very good guy to come in if you need him to start games. But the difference between him being in Indianapolis with the Colts, at that time, the Colts had one of the top offensive lines. He had time to sit back and make his reads. Miami's offensive line right now is a brutal mess. And if Jacoby doesn't have his time to make the reads, that's where he struggles, because he has such a long windup in his throw. It takes him so long to get the ball out of his hands. That does not bode well for success for this Miami offense. That's going to allow guys like Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue to get sacks, so maybe to force early pressures and force potential turnovers. I think the Dolphins offense is going to struggle. Now, they are getting Will Fuller back, so they're going to have Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker. So maybe if they can give Jacoby Brissett some type of time, maybe he can take what's given to him and maybe pick apart this Raiders defense at times. But I don't see it happening until I see a proven success from the offensive line out of Miami. I think Jacoby's going to be harassed throughout the day. I think they're going to struggle. I see a lot of 3-and-outs, a lot of stalling at the 50-yard line. I think the Raiders are going to handle their business at home. I think they're going to win I'll give them a 31-21 type of win for the Raiders. And then we got the matchup of the week. The top two teams on my power rankings that I released on my Twitter. Do check those out. I release them every Tuesday morning around 8 a.m. Eastern. If you ever want to see my power rankings, just follow me at Cody Talks NFL on Twitter. Let's start with the Bucs. Now, Antonio Brown is likely out. He's on the COVID-19 reserve list. Now, there's a chance the report comes out today that maybe he can play. How it works is he's vaccinated. So if a player's vaccinated, they have to have 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. So from what I understand, there's a chance that Antonio Brown could still get those negative tests where he can play. But it sounds like more than likely he's going to be out this week. And then Jaden Mickens is out, and then Jason Pierre-Paul is out with a hand and shoulder. Mickens is dealing with an abdomen. And then the Rams report, Darrell Henderson is questionable with ribs, and then Jacob Harrison is questionable with a hip injury. Now, man, I cannot wait to watch this game. I think it's going to be a firework type of matchup. I think you're going to see great performances from both sides of the ball, from both teams. I think you're going to see the Rams move the ball with Matthew Stafford in that passing attack against that I wouldn't call it a poor secondary. I just think that injury with Sean Murphy Bunting has kind of threw that secondary in a loop. And yeah, they looked a lot better against the Falcons last week, but that's the Falcons, and they're going against a Rams offense that has got things going right now with Matthew Stafford, especially with Cooper Kupp. I think you're going to see a nice solid day out of Robert Woods tomorrow. I think Van Jefferson is going to be involved, and I think this is going to be the game. Hey, it's a revenge factor. Deshaun Jackson against one of his former teams. I think they're going to take at least 2 to 3 deep shots with Deshaun tomorrow. And I'm calling it right now. I would not be surprised if tomorrow Deshaun Jackson gets a 50-plus yard touchdown against this Bucs defense. I'm calling that shot. I think they're going to be able to move the ball throughout the day. But I think, it's like I mentioned at the beginning of this part, this section, is I think both defenses are going to show up. I think Shaq Barrett's going to maybe come off the edge and hit Matthew Stafford to force a fumble. I think maybe Levante David or Devin White are going to be back in coverage, and maybe Matthew Stafford makes a poor read, and they're going to get a pick six. I think you're going to see fireworks from the offense and defense from both teams tomorrow. And then you flip side of the ball, the Bucs are humming, right? Tom Brady is just picking apart defenses. This Rams defense has not necessarily been great this year. Colts were able to move the ball pretty easily on them. I think it was, I want to give credit to who I heard the stat from. I think it was Greg Rosenthal from the Around the NFL podcast. I think he pointed out the Rams defense has only forced, I want to say, 3 punts this year. So I think the Bucs are going to be able to move the ball against this Rams defense. I think even with Antonio Brown out, I think you can see, I think Scotty Miller's going to get involved. Tyler Johnson's going to get involved. They got their tight ends. They can get involved too. So that's the benefit. When you have so much depth in your wide receiver and tight end room, you can afford for Antonio Brown to miss a game. So I think they're going to be able to move the ball and put up points. But I think this Rams defense is going to show up. Like I said, maybe Jalen Ramsey gets his hand on the ball for a pick six. Maybe Aaron Donald blows up the middle of that offensive line and hits Tom Brady to force him to fumble as some big play happens. I think, like I said, I think it's going to be fireworks, back and forth. Bucs defense showing up, Rams defense showing up. It's going to be a back and forth battle. I think a lot of points are going to get scored. It's going to be an exciting matchup to watch tomorrow. I can't wait for it. Who am I picking? Do I pick the defending Super Bowl champs, or do I pick the home team in the Rams? Oh man, I am having a tough time feeling this one out, guys. I really do, because I think the Rams can pull it off. I think it's going to be like a 1-2 point. It's going to come down to who has the ball last, right? The Bucs or the Rams. I can't bet against Tom Brady, right? I think the Bucs squeeze out a win, 31-30. They kick a field goal to leave with a victory tomorrow. And then I'm moving into the last 4 p.m. game. We got the Seattle Seahawks traveling out to Minnesota to face the Vikings. As far as the injury report on the Seahawks, Brandon Shell's out with an ankle, D. Eskridge is out with a concussion, Rashad Penny is out with a calf, and Benson Mayowa is questionable with a neck injury. And then on the Vikings side, Anthony Barr is out with a knee, Christian Darrisaw is out with the groin, Harrison Hand is out with a hamstring, and Dalvin Cook is questionable with an ankle injury. And Dalvin Cook's a true game time decision. I think he is going to play, but if he does not play, I think that completely changes my feelings on this matchup on how it could go. But that Seahawks team, they should have won that game too, though, against the Titans. So this is very hard for me to read, because the Vikings should have won last week, right? They should have had that win on the final kick. I think this is a game where both teams really need this victory, right? Because the Seahawks are sitting at 1-1. If they lose and they go 1-2, then the rest of the NFC West could be pulling away in the division. And same thing with the Vikings. They start 0-3, then they got to crawl out a hole and try to get themselves back into a wild card position if they do indeed want to make the playoffs. Starting with the Vikings, I think their offense is really moving right now. Kirk Cousins is playing at a nice, good level. I think he's going to be able to continue that this week against that Seahawks defense, who haven't really been that great at this year. They really let the Titans kind of run the ball against them last week and move the ball through the air, especially to Julio Jones. So as long as Dalvin Cook can play, I think he's going to have a good day. And I think we're going to see a nice, little strong performance from Justin Jefferson. I think they're going to be able to put up points, especially at home against the Seahawks defense. And then flipping side of the ball, like the Russell Wilson has been really good this year, but There's been times they were stalling last week in that fourth quarter. They need to figure out things, get going with Chris Carson. I think DK Metcalf's going to have a blow-up game as well. I think this is going to be a offensive shootout. Then they need either defense. They're going to need one of these defenses to show up and force a turnover. I think that's what it's going to come down to. This feels like a barn burner type of matchup that comes down to who can win that turnover battle. Man, this is tough for me to pick because I kind of view each team as even. The Vikings have a bad history of beating Seattle. I think my buddies that are Vikings fans said they haven't beat them since 2003. But man, like something's got to go right for this Vikings team, right? Like they lost on a final second field goal to the Bengals, missed a short kick against the Cardinals last week. I said I want to pick the Vikings. I am, man. They're at home. They should have won the first two games. I think this is a team that's better than what their record is. And I think they figure out a way to squeeze out a win in the fourth quarter. They win like a 31-27 win over the Seahawks tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and get into the Sunday night football matchup. We got the Green Bay Packers traveling out to San Francisco to face the 49ers. Starting with the Packers injury report, this is huge in my opinion. Elton Jenkins is doubtful with an ankle injury. So they're going to be out their two best offensive linemen. They already been out there, David Bakhtiari, who's on the PUP list, and now they're going to be missing Elton Jenkins, who's an absolute stud lineman. And then the other injury is Dominique Daphne, who's questionable with a hip. And then luckily they're kind of facing a banged up defense though with the 49ers. Kevin Givens is out with an ankle. Jermichael Hasty is out with an ankle. Elijah Mitchell is doubtful with his shoulder injury. And then this is where they can maybe get things going with Aaron Jones. Eric Armstead is questionable with a adductor. Javon Kinlaw is questionable with a knee. So that helps out that offensive line for the Packers if those guys can't play or if those two guys are less than 100%. And then Emmanuel Mosley is questionable with a knee. And that's the thing. You can really throw on this 49ers defense right now. Their secondary is banged up, and it's honestly not that great in my opinion. So I think we're going to see a nice night out of Aaron Rodgers. I think Devontae Adams is going to have a good game. Who's going to be the other guy that's going to get going for the Packers? I'm going to go with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think he's going to get over 100 yards and a touchdown tomorrow night. And I think this Packers offense, I think they're going to have some explosive plays through the air. Getting Aaron Jones going. I think they found themselves a little bit in that second half of that Monday night matchup against the Lions. But I will say this, I think the 49ers are going to keep them in check on about 2 to 4 drives tomorrow night because of Elton Jenkins being out. That's huge. Like, I think there's going to be some drives they're going to be able to blow up the offensive line and get their hand on Aaron Rodgers to end drives early with some sacks. And then you flip sides of the ball, that Packers defense has been far from great. They finally caught some breaks against the Lions last week, but they're facing a 49ers rushing attack. Yeah, they're going to be out Jermichael Hasty and Elijah Mitchell, but I think we're going to see a nice performance out of Trey Sermon tomorrow night. I think they're going to lean on that rushing attack to try to keep Aaron Rodgers on the sideline as much as possible. And then they're just going to need Jimmy Garoppolo to play efficient and try to take some shots. I think Deebo Samuel will be heavily involved. They're going to manufacture touches to help move the ball. But, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Jimmy Garoppolo just doesn't scare me. I think if I'm the Packers, I would stick Jaire Alexander on Deebo Samuel as much as possible, try to shadow him and take him out of the offense, and then just make sure you got at least maybe two sets of eyes on George Kittle, and he's not picking you apart as well. Now, one thing that could be very interesting, man, I'm not giving proper credit to who said this. I do apologize, but this might be the game where you see Trey Lance break out. Do you remember Jared Goff doing those read option plays and Jared Goff running for a bunch of yards last week? Well, do that with Trey Lance to see what happens. So I think we might see Trey Lance be more involved than what he was last week against the Eagles. So if that does indeed happen, maybe this 49ers team can make things a little interesting on Sunday night. Man, it's in San Francisco, though. That's Aaron Rodgers' home. If we're going to see mostly Jimmy G, I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers over Jimmy G any day of the week. I think the Packers do indeed find a way to win on Sunday night and get to a 2-1 record. I think they win let's go with a 35-27 type of win for the Packers. And then we're going to move into the Monday night matchup. We got the NFC East battle between both rivals. The Eagles are traveling down to Dallas to face the Cowboys. This is huge, and it's terrible timing for the Eagles, but their left tackle, Jordan Mailata, he suffered a sprained knee, so he's already basically been ruled out of the matchup. Now, again, you'll get the final injury report at some point today, but Fletcher Cox did not practice with an illness, as well as Boston Scott with an illness. These three players have been limited. Jason Kelsey with a foot, Rodney McLeod with a knee, and then Davion Taylor with his calf injury. And then these following players have not practiced for the Cowboys. Dorrance Armstrong with an ankle, Ty Neske with an illness, Donovan Wilson with a groin, and then Carlos Watkins with a knee. Now, as far as this matchup, man, I think this is going to be, I think both defenses are going to kind of struggle in this matchup. I think the Cowboys, starting with them, I think they got things rolling through the against the Chargers last week. I think they figured out things how to properly use balanced attack between Zeke and Tony Pollard, and it's going to be a little bit of a tougher matchup against that Eagles defensive front, who is a lot better this week, who's a lot better this season, but they did lose Brandon Graham last week, so we'll have to see if that has a major impact on their play, but they still have some pieces like Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett that can help replace him and get after the quarterback. But I think they're going to have a nice, decent game. But I think this is going to be a game they're going to depend on Dak to pick apart that Eagles secondary. I think you're going to see a strong game out of CeeDee Lamb. I think one of their tight ends, whether it's Dalton Schultz or drawing the blank on the other one, but as long as one of those two, is it the other guy, the Oklahoma kid? But yeah, I'm drawing a blank. But one of their tight ends I think is going to have a nice, decent night, and I think the Cowboys are going to be able to move the ball and put up some points against this Eagles defense. And you flip sides of the ball, I think the Eagles defense offense is going to have a good day. I think they're going to get things going with Miles Sanders on the ground, and I think that's going to open up the RPO for Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to get some things moving on the ground himself, and then if that can open up the RPO, I think that's going to open up things for Dallas Goedert. I think he's going to have a strong game. I think Devontae Smith is going to eat up that secondary from the Cowboys, and they're going to be able to put up some passing yards against Dallas. I kind of see this coming down to the fourth quarter. I do think the Cowboys are the better team right now, but these teams typically play each other very tough, and especially it always seems like anytime we get an Eagles-Cowboys matchup on prime time, they always typically come down to the fourth quarter. So I could definitely see this coming down to who has the ball last. Maybe it comes down to who can force the most turnovers. Like I said, I think the Cowboys are the better team right now because of the way their offense is playing. I think the defense is slowly coming together and improving, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring matchup. I think Dak finds a way to put his team in victory and to put his team to get a victory. I think the Cowboys win like a 35-31 matchup on Monday. So there it is. Right around the hour time. I do thank you guys if you watch that whole thing. I always appreciate anybody that takes their time to watch any of my videos. If you did enjoy today's video, hit the like button. If you didn't enjoy today's video, just pretend like it never happened. And then also, if you have not yet, hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to increase that number. I do appreciate some people that have subscribed over the last couple days. And then, as always, go to the prospectencyclopedia.com so you can read those reports. Like I gave out the player, Chuba Hubbard. You can read his report and all the other reports for only $15. But if you just want to check out your favorite team, it's only $1. You can download the Bucks section, which I wrote for free. Check that out. And if you're really impressed, go purchase the whole thing. Go to prospectencyclopedia.com to check that out. Other than that, I want to get this out there for you guys, so I need to get to editing it. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here. You enjoy the rest of your weekend. You enjoy all this football we got going on. And I'll talk to you guys on Tuesday when I do my waiver wires and top streamable defenses.